Hey everybody, welcome to Laura and the Party Animals. I'm Laura and this is Pickles. And Pickles is a male chameleon and he can get moody. And these guys, you really don't ever want to get bit by these. And everybody thinks they're so sweet and nice. They're very moody and they can really do some damage if they bite. So just remember that if you go for a chameleon. Okay, so I want to say, you know what? Thank you, law enforcement. I just can't thank the men and women enough with any law enforcement, whether it be, the state, the federal, and certainly our local, because our local has to deal with everything, all the crazy stuff, all the real stuff. But I'm telling you guys, I just want to thank them so much. They mean a lot. And in a lot of my stories, you will understand why it is important for me to send that message out to everybody. So this would have happened about, I don't know, maybe like the early 90s. And this wasn't in North Richland Hills. This was in Watauga at the time. And in college, I was in a sorority and I was a little sister in a fraternity. And we were used to just having huge parties. And many of the cases, we don't know all those people, right? We're used to having everybody come in and hanging out with people, because the way we saw it is, how are you going to get to know anybody unless you get to know them, right? So it was not uncommon at all for us to have people all come to our parties and our houses and hang out that we had no idea who they were. And I had roommates and they would have their friends and they would have their friends and, so on. So this, in 1991, 1992, I was having this Christmas party, and my mother always wanted to come to the parties, and of course, being in college, I was like, no, you can't come to my parties, it's not happening. Anyway, this big party that she got wind of, that it was going to be a big party, she just really wanted in there, and I was like, still, nope, it's not happening. So anyway, the night goes on, and all my friends show up, all who we perceive as our normal college group coming in. But as the night goes on, a little bit wilder and wilder crowd, at least looking crowds, start to show up, okay? I don't know who these guys are, at all. But, as long as they weren't having fights and, causing a bunch of chaotic mess in there or getting us in trouble for doing something stupid, I was fine with it. And I had just gotten back from Red River, New Mexico, down there in at Thanksgiving, and I had met what I perceived as this gorgeous guy, and he was from New Mexico here in Texas, or here, actually in Watauga. He had come in. So I was trying to keep everything, really on a great behavior and, everything in the up and up, trying to do my best at keeping everything the way it should be. But then as the night goes on, like I said, all these wilder and wilder looking guys start coming in. And I'm like, okay, I don't know any of them. I was just like, whatever. Again, they weren't causing me any issues. So, I don't know, about the middle of, about 10 or 11, in the middle of the party, this old bag lady comes in with her friends. I mean, this horrid looking bag lady, right? And as I'm watching her, I realize, dude, she's got that horrible bag lady Halloween mask on. It was one of the ones that looked, real. It wasn't one of the plastic ones. It was one of the rubber ones that looked quite real. And her friends and all, and I was like, oh my God, what just came into my party? And, she was all dressed up like a bag lady, the clothes and all that. And so the guys all in there, like the ones I didn't have a clue what they were going, who they were, they just start wigging out and just going off, and they're just really freaking out about that time. And then I hear some girl, screaming in the bathroom. And I'm like, what is going on? I run in the bathroom, and somebody had let my huge iguana out, and my iguana was hanging on the shower bar, and like the toilet was right there, and of course the iguana was hanging off, and she was freaking out. And then the pig is running around like oinking and chasing everybody. And out back, somebody had let my wallaby out, and my wallaby was hopping all around, and I'm out there trying to catch him. And, it's just going crazy by this time of the night. And so these guys all start coming up, and they're freaking out about this bag lady. And this bag lady and her friends come in, and they just sit down. And they're there like so far like half an hour, and they're just sitting there, and they start passing out breadcrumbs. And I kept telling everybody there, oh my God, don't eat that. I don't know who this woman is. Do not eat those breadcrumbs. Oh my God, don't. And these guys, I don't know who they are. They appear pretty, wasted at that time. And so they all come up, and they're like, oh my God, she's a narc. She's a narc. These are narcs. And I'm like, well, I don't really care if they're a narc. I'm not doing anything. If you're doing something, that's your problem. Like, I'm not worried about it. And by that time, they are freaking out, like totally freaking out. And so they kind of sit down, and she's passing these breadcrumbs out. They're like holding their hands open. And again, even though I don't know them, I'm like, don't eat that. So as the night goes on, and the iguana's running all over the place, and the pig is just screaming at the top of its, lungs, I guess you would say. And I've finally caught the wallaby, and I was able to get the wallaby back in his cage, and the dogs are running all over the place. And anyway, so my sister comes up to me, and she's like, oh my God, who is that? And you gotta realize, even though this was the early 90s, and nowadays it would be actually very, very scary. But back then we weren't, quite as worried about things. And again, like I said, I was used to these like really big parties. And so my sister and I are sitting there talking, like, who is this? I'm like, is it any of your friends? I'm like, it's not any of my friends. And we look down at her hands, and we recognize the jewelry. And at that point, we're like, oh my God, that's our mother. So my mother had come in there dressed in this horrid bag lady outfit. Terrified all these people in there. And anyway, finally, when we found out who she was, of course, she had to leave. That she didn't want to leave, but her and her friends did finally leave when we found out who they were. Anyway, I was like, oh my God, what is the point of this bread? And and they were just like, I don't know, we just like found it. I just couldn't believe it. So anyway, that was my crazy like Christmas story back in the early 90s. So y'all stay tuned. We'll have plenty of more stories coming out. And again, thank you so much, all our law enforcement people, because they have tolerated like so much like of all the craziness throughout the years. Not necessarily at this party, but in so many other things. So, see y'all later.